Welcome, everybody.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Welcome, everybody, and happy Ranked Choice Voting Day. January 23rd, 1, 2, 3. Ranked Choice Voting is as easy as ranking your choices, 1, 2, 3. We put the agenda and the sign-in the chat, so please take a moment to open those and sign in. And if you want to also put in the chat where you're tuning in from and what brought you out to support RCV for RCV Day. Looks like we've got some great representation so far. Cleveland, Dayton area, Cincinnati, Portsmouth, Columbus, nice, Monroe County. Great, good to see more and more people coming in. While we're waiting for a few more people to join before we get started, we wanted to mention that you can take the opportunity during this meeting and throughout RCV Day today to follow and tag us on social media while also tagging the hashtag RCV Day. This is part of a national movement that we are doing in cooperation with Fair Vote, Rank the Vote National, and states with similar organizations like ours all across the country trying to pass city and statewide initiatives and really raise awareness about what ranked choice voting is, because we know from our experience that once people understand what it is, they like it and they want it. So RCV Day is a great opportunity to spread awareness. And yes, we do have Maine's fairy godmother of ranked choice voting, Diane Russell, here with us, and she will be speaking in a little bit. We're just gonna let a couple more minutes to let people come in before we kick off. Okay, well, we're a few minutes past the hour, so we can hop in to the agenda. I'm just going to do a quick introduction of who we are and what ranked choice voting is before we start, as a few more people come in. So if you're here, you probably know what ranked choice voting is already, but if not, it's always good to practice. Ranked choice voting is a simple upgrade to our ballots that allows people to rank their choices first, second, and third, etc., instead of only picking one, so that those votes can then be used in an instant runoff to determine who the winner is with a real majority support, because we don't have that in Ohio. We have plurality wins elections, where if more than two people run, then people can win with a fraction of the votes, like 37% in a congressional primary that we had this year. So ranked choice voting is all about making elections more free and fair and giving voters more choice and more voice. We at Rank the Vote Ohio are Ohio's first and only nonpartisan nonprofit for ranked choice voting, founded a year and a half ago, registered 501c3 nonprofit. And we are working to bring ranked choice voting to Ohio with both a local and statewide strategy. We are working with volunteer groups in several of Ohio's cities who are working to get ranked choice voting on the ballot locally in places like Granville, Medina, Delaware, Cincinnati, Dayton. If you know of other cities where we can build these strongholds for ranked choice voting, please let us know, because once we do that, then we will be on track to have a statewide ballot initiative similar to the one that Maine did in 2016 as the first successful statewide ballot initiative for ranked choice voting in the country. And we are so fortunate today to have former Representative Diane Russell of Maine, who is the fairy godmother of ranked choice voting in the United States, because she really kicked off this national movement. Diane served for 8 years in the Maine House of Representatives, where she built a coalition that ranged from progressives to libertarians in order to advance civil rights legislation. And The Nation magazine named her the most valuable state representative in 2011. Now, when her efforts to reform the election system with ranked choice voting and cannabis prohibition failed in legislature, that she didn't let it stop her. She instead led a bipartisan coalition of advocates and leaders to take both ranked choice voting and marijuana legalization to the ballot in 2016 and won. And so thank you, Diane, for leading this national charge. And we're so excited to have you.
Well, thank you, Kyle. I think it's appropriate that we have a Kyle leading up things in Ohio, because we had a Kyle leading things up here in Maine, and we still do, Kyle Bailey. I see a lot of new faces, and I see some familiar ones. Nathan, I see that you're now on the speaker list. I'm very excited. Nathan Lockwood is the executive director of Rank the Vote nationally, and a dear friend and a great advocate. And then Justin Streakle, I've known forever on the marijuana side of things. I tend to work on policy that is transformative. Larry Lessig, also a dear friend, who's a Harvard professor. You probably all know who he is, out of Boston. He has always talked about being a root striker, and instead of focusing on the leaves of the tree, to focus on the roots. And I really took that to heart at a young age, and to now be friends with my own personal hero is like amazing. But it really is, we're at a place in time and in history. I was thinking the other day about where we are, and like, the curse is, of course, may you live in interesting times. We live in very interesting times, and I'm not sure that's a compliment. And everything I have done for the last 15 or so years has been to sort of prevent a civil war, because I saw it coming early on, because you had the baseline income inequality. You had a lot of things moving. I had no idea it would ever escalate as quickly as it has. And now those thoughts are, posted on headlines around the country. And that's not where we need to be as a society. So for me, I work on transformative policy that addresses very, it may seemingly be a simple thing, as you called it, Kyle, and a minor little upgrade. But it has transformative policy. While I love my edibles now that they're legal, it's not why I did that. Legalization of marijuana for me, and I was one of the first people in the country to really launch that movement as well. It wasn't about being able to smoke your joint, right? And it wasn't about my rights. It was about the fact that Black people were incarcerated across the country in unbelievable numbers, and it was racist, it was unjust, and someone needed to do something about it, and it needed to be someone that could make a case to people. And so what I'm going to talk to you about today, because I only have 10 to 15 minutes, so I can't go through the whole story. I mean, one of these days, Kyle, you're welcome to invite me back, but for that, if you guys really want to geek out on it. But here's the thing that I really think is important about ranked choice voting. It's not about the semantics. It's not that's important. It's not about the little minutia detail. It's about the global impact that we can have by changing our democracy and shoring it up. I think, every headline right now shows that democracy is in deep peril. And I don't think it was a coincidence that we were born right now. Of all the years in all of human history, 10,000 years, unless you watch Ancient Aliens, then it's longer, 10,000 years of human history. And this is when we chose to be born. And so what does that mean? And what is it that we can do in this moment that we never expected, we never asked for, and yet we all need to rise to the damn occasion. And that's why you all are here today. Am I right? Heads nodding? Yeah. Rising to the occasion. That's what we're here to do. We're here to rise up, but not in, I don't want to get to a place where we have to address our issues at the end of the gun. That's not how politics should work. And that was certainly not the founding principles that our forefathers and foremothers, who also helped build this country, by the way, It's not what they envisioned. They were trying to get away from tyranny. They were trying to get away from income inequality. I have done a lot of work. I'm a huge fan of the Curse of Oak Island, and I'm tracking down my own theories here in Maine because we're very close. And I've been doing a lot of research on the French and American Revolution and some of the French people that had come over during the American Revolution. I lived in Philadelphia. Like I've spent a lot of time thinking about and reading about the origins of this country, especially as of late. And it's really prophetic that that's what these folks wanted. And then folks are using the Federalist Papers to try to tell us that our democracy isn't really what it should be and what we think it is, and that we don't deserve the right to vote. Let's be clear. The fundamental problem we have is that we don't have a constitutional right to vote in this country. And so what we're doing is trying to fix what's broken in the best ways that we can. So what we're going to do is upgrade to the next level and upgrade our democracy. I think about RCV as democracy 2.0. And it's not, I want to be clear, this is not a silver bullet solution. This is part of a three-legged stool where we have to address campaign finance reform in meaningful ways. We have to make sure that Black people and Hispanic people and low-income people have the right to vote, and that they're not, it's unconscionable that low-income and minority communities are standing in line on average for 2 hours to vote when white communities can walk in and vote. Now that's discrimination. That's Jim Crow. And so we're trying to get away from that. But the only way we can get away from that is that if we can elect people who actually are going to represent the best interests of this country and the best interests of its promise and the best interests of its people. Now, we can't do that with a two-party system. What we see in other countries is a more of a parliamentary version of democracy, where there's multiple parties at the table, right? And so there's multiple fractions of power. And we're not seeing that in this country. We're seeing two parties. Now, both of whom, by the way, I have gone up against. I went up against the DNC and directly challenged them in 2016 on the superdelegate issue because I didn't think it was appropriate. Yes, we're bipartisan, but I happen to be a Democrat. I didn't think it was appropriate for the Democratic Party to have people in power who had more voting power than the rest of us who were the foundation of the party. And so I led the fight to take on the DNC and fix that. With ranked choice voting, the RNC, not the local GOP, I mean, though they have certainly done their work, the national RNC came after RCV. Right? It came right for it. The local GOP tried, then Bruce Poliquin tried, then the national took it all the way up to the Supreme Court last September in 2020. The most conservative Supreme Court we have seen probably in history. And they stood up for ranked choice voting and declined to let the GOP. So I'm someone that's actually taken on the DNC and the RNC specifically and directly. Why would we need to do that? If we had even one or two more parties that were solid enough, we'd be in a position to be able to negotiate. When you see what happened in Israel recently, you saw that the new prime minister didn't win and had to build a coalition government, meaning they had to make compromises. Right now, there's no coalition anything. There's either you win or you lose. And actually, it's worse than that. You either win or the other guy, and it's usually a guy, wins, right? So we got to get beyond this winner take all system, because it's really the winner literally is taking everything. The winner take all democracy has stolen everything from the people of this country. And I think it's disgusting. So let's talk a little bit about how and why Ohio is so important. So you guys all know you're the battleground state most years. Some days there's a different state that like sits you out, but for the most part, you guys are sort of the old school battleground state. But I also see a lot of similarities. So in the very year your people overturned the workers' rights changes to the laws, the union rights that inspired the Wisconsin union protests and the same laws got passed in Ohio. You guys took to the ballot and you did a people's veto and blocked it. That same year, the Republicans had taken over in Maine, and they blocked and they repealed election day registration, which is a voting reform that we have had in place for almost 50 years now. And so they blocked it, they repealed it, and we went to the ballot box to block that repeal. And so in the same year, Ohio and Maine blocked, through people's veto and people's action, very toxic legislation that would have done great harm to a lot of people across the state. And what that tells me is that there's a lot of similarities in terms of who is organizing and utilizing the referendum process. Kyle, do you have a referendum or just the people's veto in Ohio? Forgive me for not knowing.
We have a ballot initiative process in Ohio.
Okay. So for those of us that have ballot initiative states, it's a game changer. And I think every state should have a ballot initiative because they should be hard. They should not be easy. But I have found in my state that trying to convince a bunch of toddlers pretending to be adults who are actually just adulting in state capitals to do the right thing is really not going to happen. And I can say this and be as callous about it as anyone, because I actually served for 8 years in the legislature. I know how politics operates, and they continually will say, oh, the ballot referendum, the people just didn't read the bill. They never read the bill. I'm like, well, you never read the bill. You get 2,500 bills. You're telling me that you read the bill? I know for a fact that you don't. So stop lying to people and stop being arrogant, because there's no place for it. There's just no place for it. So we have to really think about the ballot referendum process, both at the municipal level, which I know you guys are working on, and the state level, in terms of how to get the message out. And the more communities that have it and are exposed to it, here's the thing. It's like universal health care. Everyone knows that the moment America gets universal health care, we are never giving it back. We saw that with the ACA, right? No matter how hard they tried, they campaigned, they could not repeal the ACA because the American public just was not going to have it, because we wanted it. What we really want is Medicare for all of some kind. So similarly, when people taste ranked choice voting, yeah, sure, you're going to hear from people that are like, I just wanted one vote. I just want to vote for one person because that's the way it should be. It's the way it's always been done. No, it's not, actually. But set that aside. It's maybe all you've done in your life, but it's not all it's been done throughout human history. I kept coming up against, oh, it's never been done before. Oh, really? Because Ireland and Australia have been running national elections for a very long period of time. Cambridge, San Francisco, and some other places have been running ranked choice voting. So using the referendum process is really great at driving an agenda, especially if you start at the local level, because you give people a taste for it. So when politicians told me, oh, well, we don't have any example of it in Maine, I said, okay. We were working on a charter commission, and I made sure the charter commission took up ranked choice voting, and that was one of its top priorities. And we got ranked choice voting passed in Portland. And it was one of the first times we'd done it, and it was a resounding success. And then they said, well, we don't have any statewide examples. So they're always going to give you a new goalpost to chase. I chased those goalposts as far as I could. Those goalposts are bullshit. They're not real. They're lying to you. They're just trying to be nice and tell you it's not you, it's me. So don't buy it, because it's you. It really is them. The problem is that they're so terrified of moving forward with anything that might be perceived as different that they're never going to do it. So when it comes to stuff like incremental changes and tweaks, lawmakers and legislatures are great for that. But when it comes for substantial reform, which for some reason our ancestors were perfectly capable of doing, without the education system that we currently have in place and without universities. In fact, when we first came to the United States of America, we didn't exactly have schools. If you look at de Tocqueville, he talked extensively about how our school system is why our revolution ended up very different than the French Revolution. So there's a lot of things at play here when it comes to politics, but you guys are at a real specific location that can be game changing. So we passed not just, yes, Felina, you're absolutely right. She writes, Ohio has the advantage to say, but we use our CV here in Ohio. Being able to say that We use RCV in a battleground state. So we passed RCV at the ballot box, and then our Senate President, Troy Jackson, was able to introduced it and was able to get the presidential side passed. And so we're actually able to rank our candidates in order of preference for president of the United States. Imagine if Ohio could do that. Imagine if Ohio could rank their candidates in order of preference. What a game changer that would be. Imagine if Ohio had a libertarian party that grew and a Green party that grew, or a People's Movement party. And all of a sudden, the battleground state that was about left versus right is now about America, its future or its past, right? And so it really changes things. But more importantly, the next phase, I think, of RCV rollout is to get a really important state like Ohio, but really to hone in on election night for the presidency, because that's when everybody in America is tuning in. So that's why Ohio is so important. It's not just the electoral side, which is very important. And let's be clear, like, I don't see it as very important in terms of whether Democrats win. I think it's very important because it's a battleground state, irrespective of the parties. I think when you start seeing ranked choice voting move forward in a bunch of states, you're going to start seeing more parties develop. I myself have been approached numerous times to start a new party. And I've always said, well, bring me the bylaws and I'll consider it. Because once, I'm not going to sit down and spend the next 6 months debating bylaws and commas and semicolons and nays versus shalls. It just won't do it. It's not a good use of my time. But that's the same case for a lot of people. Building a new party is very expensive, and the other parties are very well funded to block you from doing it. But with ranked choice voting, you could just run as an independent and you might stand a damn chance. Whereas right now you're shut out. So as someone that's been attacked by both the RNC and the DNC and stood up to them successfully, I just want to say that they're not, they're just a bunch of people. They are the most powerful institutions in human history, if you think about it. But they're also just people, and they are infallible, and they can be persuaded otherwise. So I think I'd like to see, I know that Justin Streakle had mentioned to me that you guys were starting with a strategy of looking at some of the ballot initiatives for this, for the local ballot initiatives. And I think that's the way to start. Now, obviously I would love 2024, but I don't know that you guys are, that people are quite ready. So part of the cadence of issues, and there is a cadence, a rhythm to it, right? And you gotta track, what's going on in your state and around, what's happening. We had a catalytic moment, with Governor LaPaula Page being elected with 39% of the vote. It was egregious. And then he ran roughshod as though he had won with 61% of the vote. He ran as though he had a mandate, and he had the House and the Senate. So he did have a mandate, but he didn't really have a mandate because he only won with 39% of the vote. The second time he did win with 48% of the vote because he was, people had turned out. But the fact of the matter is that became unconscionable and untenable. Now, under normal circumstances, if someone had won with 39% of the vote plurality, they would have governed as though they had a 39% of the vote plurality, because that's what humans do. We tend to be more accommodating, and we want to be more inclusive, but not everybody feels the same way. Most of us, that not everybody buys into the same social norms that we do. And so they, when they got, it wasn't about that. It was about power. So I want to take a minute and sidebar. Power is what we were talking about. RCV is one of the most brutal fights because it is about putting power back into the hands of everyday people, putting power away from the parties who can control the operation of how things work. Those two parties, and when you look at redistricting, do you think, we talk about all these fights over redistricting. They exist, but do you know what also happens during redistricting? Because it happened here, and I've seen it happen over and over again. The people that negotiate will agree. I'll trade you my difficult politician for your difficult politician. And do you know who gets exited out with those redistrictings and those agreements? progressives, libertarians. So if you're on the left and you're a progressive and you're effective, they're more than likely to redistrict you out. It just happened to a friend of mine. If you're on the right and you don't buy into the Trump agenda and you actually have the audacity to stand up for your country, you could be redistricted out. So redistricting isn't just about who gets to vote. It's also about who is allowed to run. That's how much power that these parties have. And they manipulate and they move things. And so you've got all the people in power that set the agenda. And those of us fighting the power structure, we're the unseemly ones. We are uncivilized. You might want to tone it down. We could do that next year. We'll get it next time. These are all the things you hear, especially as a young lawmaker. But it's all bullshit. It's a stall tactic because they know, just like the committee in DC, all those subpoenas that went out and got rejected to the insurrection committee or the coup committee, let's be more specific. Those folks are choosing to go the legal route because they know if they can stall for a year, that committee is going to go away and they can protect their president. And he's probably going to win again. So there's a lot at play here. And I think RCV blossoming in Ohio is about the best amount of hope for this country that I can think about. Because once people are exposed to the idea, then they have to think about it. And at first they're not going to like it, right? They're gonna be like, oh, it's too scary. It's too big. It's too changed. What about the elderly? What about people that are disabled and they can't read the ballot? All of these things. What about recounts? I got that a lot. We've now had our first official recount that I know of, and Nathan or Rob Ritchie, I don't think Rob's on the phone, could correct me otherwise, but we had a recount in Portland this past cycle that went very, very well. And everybody involved was very careful to make sure that RCV came out a champion, that it was just a recall. A recount. We were just going to go do it again. And the person that I wanted to win ended up winning in the end. Recounts can happen, but they throw all these red herrings at you. So just when you hear the red herring from a grassroots person, an everyday person, take the time to deconstruct that red herring for them and walk them through why it works. Because it's like, marijuana legalization. People were like, ooh, but then they thought about it. They're like, yeah, I think it's fine. They were worried about their kids, but they got over that because they had to think about it. When you start forcing people to think about things, then they start getting down the road. And when you start getting people to think about things, then they get a taste for it. So I think we really want to be thinking about how to build momentum. We did a ton of, and it's impossible to do it right now. And we're working on a ballot, and the RCV team is actually working on a new ballot initiative right now in Maine. And we're about to put it on ice for about 6 or 8 weeks to get through the winter, because the signature drive is brutal right now. It's ice cold up here in Maine. It's one of the most brutal winters I've had in a long time. So we're going to put it on ice for a little bit, but the RCV team is still doing work, and we're still using the referendum process to shore up democracy. And I think that that's the way to do it, because at this point, the polarization is so dramatic. And like I said earlier, either I win or I win, you lose, you win, I win. There's no we win. And that's what's been lost in America today. And I lament that. And as someone that's been fiery and is fiery, and, my bumper sticker for governor is fight like a girl. It's my mantra, right? Fight like a girl. And that's what I'm known for. So, but at the same time, and I've certainly taken on my fair share of fights with lawmakers, and I've pointed stuff out. And I've probably gone a little overboard on occasion. I was young at the time, but we can't let our passions, we have to let it drive the agenda, but not the way we treat each other. And I think with ranked choice voting, the problem that America has had is that the American citizens have been shut out of the government that we supposedly own collectively. A democracy is effectively a co-op. We're members, like we're member owners of our country. And we shape that thinking going forward. But what's happened is that our opinion and our votes no longer matter. And the vote that we had this week or last week around the voting rights legislation is really crazy. But anyway, that's what I got for today. I'm sorry it wasn't exactly like constructive how we do things, but I only have a short period of time. So I just wanted to kind of give you the heads up, but really the focus has to be getting RCV in these battleground states and getting people talking about it, because at the end of the day, when they see Ohio has it on election night, all the news pundits are going to talk about it, and then every other state is going to go, wait, what is that? I want that. And that's what we want to see. So just remember that you chose to be born in the most difficult period so that you could rise to the occasion with your fellow Americans. And I think we have on our shoulders a very important mission, which is to save our democracy. But also, our impact is global as Americans. And we're seeing that the destabilizing effect that America has had with world leaders. And this allows us an opportunity to start restoring it. Is it going to happen overnight? Is it going to prevent civil violence like we all kind of anticipate we're going to see? I don't know. But I think it's going to be a huge part in how we rebuild and how we get beyond where we are and resolve the issues that we have had as a country, so that we can actually move on together, truly, with eyes wide open, nothing swept under the rug, and are able to address the issues that our country has faced. But that requires politicians that are willing to step up and do the right thing. And that means that citizens are going to have to fight to do that. So that's all I'm going to say at the moment. I'm happy to answer questions or whatnot, and you can certainly message me online on the chat.
Thank you so much, Diane, for sharing your advice with us. And we're looking forward to benefiting from your experience in the future as we work toward our own statewide initiative. I do see that our numbers have been growing while we've been in here. So I'm putting the agenda and sign-in sheet back in the chat so that all of our newcomers can get caught up as well. And also, we wanted to introduce Nathan Lockwood, who is the executive director of the Rank the Vote National. He actually saw that Diane was speaking today and wanted to see her. And so we invited him to speak to us for a few minutes as well.
Wow, thanks, Kyle. And great to be here with Diane, and great to be here with Rank the Vote Ohio. Just really thrilled about all the progress you folks, all the work you guys have done over the last, I don't know, it's a year and a half or 2 years. So really an honor to be here. So first thing I'll say is, what a tough act to follow, Diane Russell. Really tough act to follow, but Diane Russell and her colleagues, the champions of Maine, they are exactly the act that we have to follow if we're going to win this thing and get this done. So really great to have the opportunity to hear what she has to say about how to do that. So I have a few things. I was asked to talk a little bit about national strategy, and good timing. I just presented to our advisory board the other night on this. I think it's an amazing time to be working on ranked choice voting right now. And because I have trouble talking to people without using visual aids. So if I share my screen, do I have permission to, if I wanted to share some slides? Because I know folks haven't seen enough slides in the last few months.
You should have permission. Yes.
All right, sweet. Thank you. All right, one moment. All right, let me, okay. So I'll try to be brief here, but so why am I so excited about working on ranked choice voting in 2022? So think about if you were Diane or her colleagues in Maine in 2012 when they started, 2011, or maybe like right the second after the 2010 gubernatorial results were announced, or whatever it was exactly.
Oh no, I started this in 2007. I did this long before. I was doing this long before I was in the legislature. I used to work at Fair Vote.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So back then, it was you and Fair Vote and the people around you in Maine, and you didn't have a lot. It was all on you to win that thing, and you built allies and coalition, and you got some great people to work with you. I know you Your team built an incredible coalition, but you were leading the charge for RCV. With Maine winning and inspiring the rest of us, and showing what's possible, what's happened is that people and organizations are stepping up, and organizations that existed are saying, hey, we should be working on that too. And as a result, there's like a whole ecosystem around ranked choice voting now that wants to win ranked choice voting and wants to support grassroots organizers like yourself who are winning. And so you've got Fair Vote and Represent Women and More Equitable Democracy, the Ranked Choice Voting Resource Center, Democracy Rising, that are working on helping us with things like policy, education, messaging, grasstops development, lobbying, tech, legal, implementation support, voter education. And they're here to help Ohio, and they're here to help California, and they're here to help Florida. They're here to help everybody. And they've grown and what they can offer today, and they've learned, and they can offer support to make winning and implementing and educating more feasible now than ever before. So that even if we don't, we got to work really hard, don't get me wrong, but we're going to have a lot of help along the way. Rank the Vote, you folks know us. We're really excited to help with grassroots organizing, help you with your grassroots organizing program in whatever way we can. Share the advice we've had, share what we learned from Maine, share what we learned from Massachusetts. Represent Us was critical in forming a lot of these states around the country. They already had a national network, and they utilized that national network in their media to help encourage people to join their state groups. And then there's groups that are going to be running statewide ballot campaigns like Maine. Back in Maine, they had to do it on their own. They had to find their donors and whatever. There's groups now that are just actively circling the country, like hovering above, polling and looking for opportunities. Where's the legal opportunity, right? Where are the people ready? Where can they win a ballot initiative for ranked choice voting? And we're going to see several ballot initiatives run, and hopefully we're going to see a bunch of them won in 2022 because of groups like United America, the Institute for Political Innovation, A4, and others. And then there's, when they go to run these campaigns, there's now a whole ecosystem of campaign managers and political strategists and people who do polling and work with data that are prepared and ready and trained and know a lot more than we did a few years ago about how to win a ranked choice voting campaign. And they've learned from Maine and they've learned from Alaska, and they're ready to help you do that in your state when the time is right and when you've built the support to make it viable to win there. All right. So the other cool thing, and the state groups are a huge part of this. We've got, I think, when I talk to national leaders and state partners and my former grassroots colleagues in Massachusetts, well, my current grassroots colleagues in Massachusetts that I worked for years and years on Voter Choice Massachusetts with, most of us want the same thing. We want national enactment of ranked choice voting. We want to use ranked choice voting across the country in every election and get all those benefits. So that's kind of the goal that we are trying to get to. What's cool is there's a bunch of ways we can get there. Rank the Vote, we work with you folks, Monica and her team, and I guess Sean works with you guys. We work with you on capacity growth, building your volunteers, building your supporter list, getting endorsements, raising grassroots dollars. We're going to talk more about municipal wins, and as Diane was just talking about, and how we think that in this new environment, with all these great examples we have, not only from Maine, but now from New York City, and from the 20 cities that have been using ranked choice voting for a number of years, in Minnesota, where Gene Massey and Fair Vote Minnesota won a bunch, in California, where they got some cities won early on in 2003 or 2000, and implemented in 2005. So it's easier now than ever to win in municipalities. And then Utah just kind of blew the whole thing wide open with their statewide enabling legislation, doubled the amount of RCV cities in our country. So we're ready to set some aggressive goals there, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Then there's statewide and national enabling legislation. This is passing laws that makes it easier to win ranked choice voting. So Utah had that local option pilot bill that allowed rapid adoption there. Virginia passed one. Colorado's passed some enabling legislation, as has New Mexico. These are important things. And you folks, big round of applause. Ohio was the first state group when Fair Vote sent out the message late one night that, oh yeah, we need to rally folks to call the representatives and senators because we're going to have a Voter Choice Act in the House of Representatives. So let them know to vote for this. You guys were the first ones on it. And in fact, is the person responsible for Rank the Vote's email. I said, oh, great. I'm glad Ohio did this. I'm just going to copy paste most of their email and update it and send it out. And then we got, 10 or 15 states all speaking with their own distinct local flavor and branding, talking to their constituents in a way that their constituents wanted to hear about ranked choice voting, about why they needed to call their congressional representative. And a historical milestone happened. That Voter Choice Act was passed by the House of Representatives. So big round of applause to everybody and congratulations for getting that done. Statewide enactments, right now we're doing that mostly through ballot measures, but there are people who are working on legislative enactments right now, both for, smaller scope things that are still huge, like I believe Fair Vote Washington right now has got a really solid presidential RCV for presidential primaries bill that they're pushing hard on and has a real chance. And then, if you go over to Vermont Public Interest Research Group is working with a bunch of legislators. There may be a shot that they have to pass a ranked choice voting bill for Vermont through their legislature. So that'd be a huge step. And of course, then there's the ballot measures. Nevada is on the books for 2022. Missouri's on the books for 2022. So we're going to see some action in 2022. And we maybe in Maine may get some new friends using ranked choice voting. So we're really excited about that. And anyways, all this builds towards national enactment. The movement, us, the state groups, Rank the Vote, Fair Vote, United America, representatives, all these folks, we're attacking the whole pyramid right now. And this is new. Like, you guys didn't exist 2 years ago. You guys are new, and you're a huge addition for the war Diane was talking about, to win ranked choice voting. We've got a way bigger army now, and we're not just doing one little thing or two little things. We're hitting this pyramid at every level. And the things at the top of the pyramid are the hardest things to get done. But by hitting the bottom of the pyramid hard, we make those things at the top of the pyramid easier. And Rank the Vote National are proud to partner with you, the state partners. We kind of own the bottom of this pyramid. If we don't do our job together, we're not gonna make it easier to win the top of the pyramid. And maybe we'll get some wins, and that'll be great. We'll take them. But the more we do at the bottom, the easier it's going to get at the top. So finally, and then I'll let go of the mic here. This is our big thing. One of our big things that we want to work on together with you guys over the next few years. So we're going to be partnering with Fair Vote and partnering with you, because you guys are the most important part of this. The state groups are the ones that's going to make it happen. We want to do everything we can to support you in an effort to win 500 US cities using ranked choice voting by the end of 2025. So that's 500 by the end of 2025. We're at the national organization level. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff. Just like Rep Us and United America have had the accelerator grants, we wanted to do more to help you guys do this. But it won't happen without you. And you'll be hearing more about this in the coming weeks and months. And it'll be a big part of what we need to do to win nationally. So I want to thank you for letting me speak on this tonight, and for inviting me to talk. Again, I would have been just happy to get to hear Diane's really inspiring speech, but I was really thrilled to have the chance to talk to you as well. Thanks so much. And so let's follow Diane. That's the message for today.
Love it. Thank you, Nathan. Really appreciate it. So appreciate your words and all of the help that you Rank the Vote does at the national level to support us. And we are following that pyramid. We're about the second step there, working on those municipalities at the moment, trying to get that done. And we're going to contribute to those 500 cities guaranteed over the next year. It is our goal to get at least 5 cities in the state of Ohio to pass RCV in the next year. So we are on the road and working towards that at this moment. So just to remind everybody, so I'm Kristen Byrice. I'm the communications director here at Rank the Vote Ohio. And I just want to let you guys know from here that we are moving forward on those cities. We have some leaders that are in place. They're working on that. We are learning how each city that we're working on works and what it's going to take to get it passed. Every city is different. They all have their own charters. So we have to work with whatever their charters are to get these done. And we are looking at needing to raise funds in order to get those initiatives passed. We also need funds to help the statewide initiative, which we are working towards that as well simultaneously. So we need funds in the bank to be able to pay for these things. We need people, we need money, and we need endorsements in order to move this along. And we need your help. For those of you who are here, if you are excited about this, now is the time to jump in. Get in, let's get moving. We need all the help we can get to move this forward. We need, in order to go for statewide enactment, we need a minimum of $200,000 in order to get that going in the bank, ready to go. So every donation counts towards that. If you can we should have a donation link in the chat for you to be able to donate right now. Sign up for $5 a month. I saw Philina put in there. She puts $5 a month. It's a coffee. Go ahead and donate that to Rank the Vote so that Ohio, so that we can move forward with these initiatives, support the cities and the leaders that are in every city. We have been doing a series of professional videos that have helped us get the educational materials out so people understand what ranked choice voting is. And we need those materials, and we have to keep pumping those out to keep educating the state. The more we educate the state, the sooner, the faster, the easier people will get on board and support the initiative as well. We are also hiring our very first associate organizer, our first employee. We just put out the notification that we are hiring for this position. Anybody here who has organizing and fundraising experience, please jump in, put your resume in. We are looking for somebody. We have the money for 3 months. Beyond that, they have to do the fundraising work to get it moving. We need more people to get on board to help with that fundraising to continue to have that person in place. We are committed to 3 months of paying this person. We would love to have a year in the bank. We need another $30,000 to make that happen. So those are our financial goals that we're working towards. And again, every dollar that you put in, every 5, 10, 25, 50, 100 that you put in goes towards moving this movement forward, following in Maine's footsteps, getting these cities off the ground and moving us forward to, as soon as possible, getting that statewide enactment off the ground. We can't do it without your help. We can't do it without funds, and we can't do it without endorsements and people volunteering. Please sign up to volunteer, sign in our sign-in sheet. You'll be contacted if you want to volunteer. We have orientation on Wednesday. All of it, every bit of it is important. So we are asking that you join us in moving this movement forward in the state of Ohio. That is my pitch to you for that. Now, next, I've not even been spotlighted on that. Next, we are going to move into action. So we wanted you to come here today and learn about ranked choice voting, Rank the Vote Ohio, the movement, where it started, where it's going. We appreciate you being here for that. And we want you, as part of RCV Day, to take action today. We have ways that you can do that. There are 3 ways you can participate today. We have toolkits for you to participate. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to introduce each action that you could take. We're going to go into breakout rooms for each one. You choose your action. And then in that breakout room, you can ask questions and you can work on it and get that done today. So we have a Maine toolkit, which is our political action toolkit that has all of the information in it that you can pull from. Oh, already in the chat, I doubled it. And we're on it today. And what's going to happen is, so we have the 3 are our Maine toolkit there has all the links. It also has our talking points, which is going to be the thing that gives you extra information on how to talk about RCV. So you'll want that as reference. Kyle is going to be talking to us about the social media. If you want to go and right now take off, pull some graphics, pull some posts, throw it out there on all your social media. We're going to do a special social media campaign today while we're here, and Kyle's going to lead that effort today. And then I'm going to lead the letters to the editor. And then Alan's going to lead contacting elected leaders. So we need in the cities, in your local locality, if we get this through in local localities, we have to be reaching out to those elected leaders. How do we do that? We send some letters. First thing you can do today, draft your letter. Draft a letter to the editors so we can start getting some press and start getting the public educated on what ranked choice voting is and move it along. So again, I'm going to ask you to pick one room, and if you would, click the 3 little dots on your picture and rename with the number of the room you want to go to. 1 is social media. At the front of your name, to the left of your name, put 1 for social media, 2 for letters to the editor, and 3 for contacting elected leaders. Choose your room and we'll put you in there. Make sure you have a number to the left of your name, 1, 2, or 3. Kyle, Alan, anything else you want to say about those 3 rooms that we're going into?
Yeah, I just want to say that just because you're choosing one of the 3 rooms today doesn't mean that you can't do all 3. You can use the link to the toolkit that we provided that has all 3 toolkits in it, along with our talking points. And so, for example, if you want to write a letter to the editor today, or if you want to contact your local officials today to tell them about RCV and ask them for their support, that doesn't mean you can't also tweet and tag us on Facebook and Instagram as well. So we're trying to just raise as much awareness as possible right at this moment, because Ranked Choice Voting Day as a national day of action gives us the opportunity to make a splash and get people to hear about ranked choice voting for the first time and understand it. Because the biggest barrier that we have is that we know people like it, they just have to know about it. And so that's the power that we have right now.
All right, I see people putting numbers in front of their names. This is great. We're getting them in. Craig, let us know when you're ready to go into breakout rooms. When we're done, keep those numbers going in. Remember the 3 little dots over your picture, and then rename and put the number of the room you want to go to the left of your name so that we can see which room you're going to, and we can put you in there.
And if you really just have no idea what's going on, if this is your first time hearing about like ranked choice voting and stuff, you just wanted to see like what it is, feel free to hang out in the main room where we will have some people who can answer your questions.
Yeah, some of us, sometimes we have people who are new and are like, what are we doing? What is this? And that's great. And we like curiosity, and we like people who are wondering, want to know more. So we're happy to help you answer your questions or talk with you about it in the main room. So you can just stay right here. You don't need to put a number to stay here.
I'm pretty close to, I'm adding people to them right now. So just whenever you're ready, I can press the button.
All right, let's go to our breakout rooms. Let's go take some action, and then we'll come back in about, Craig, if you could end it in about 20 minutes.
Copy.
And then we'll wrap this up by 3:30 today.
Hi, everyone. So we're hanging out in the middle. Alan, do you still need to go to your room?
Yeah, room 3, if you don't mind.
Got it.
Cool. So we're having this little open area. This is always our spot for anyone who has any questions or who might not know what it is that we're doing and just walked in and just got thrown all of this information. We want to be here to help you in any way that you guys can. And thanks again, Diane, for coming. I really enjoyed your speech. But does anyone else have any questions right now about what we do, what ranked choice voting is, or you want to help but don't know how? Randy, it looks like you're coming off of well, mute, but do you have any questions or anything that you want to ask? Oh, yeah, you're still muted though.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey.
Randy's just trying to figure out his webcam. That's all. But you know, so this is my first time here, so that's why I'm just joining in the main room here still. And you know, my first silly question is, what you know, where you know, this is a ranked choice voting. I understand what that is and what it means and kind of how it works anyway. But are there other voting mechanisms that this group is, you know, also, you know, accepting or interested in or looking at?
So for us specifically, Dan, if you don't mind, for us specifically, it's all the versions of ranked choice. So that actually includes there's single transferable vote, there's Condorcet proportional representation. And it's actually the one that we are trying to help Cincinnati work on right now. They're actually having their second meeting next week. They're doing it in person, but it's any version of ranked choice are all of the ones that we Rank the Vote Ohio are for.
Okay, good.
Oh, but Diane, it looked like you were about to say something. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. That's fine. Hi, that Justin. So Randy, thank you and welcome to the team. We're really excited to have you. So there are a bunch of election system reforms that are proposed. There's range voting that a lot of mathematicians really like, but hasn't been put into practice. There's a group of folks that have been really pushing for like the perfect election system, but there isn't a perfect election system in every scenario. So I've done a lot of research. As I mentioned, you know, I've been doing this since about 2007 and working on it. It took a long time to get it moved in Maine. I mean, we can talk on the back end, but you know, when I first introduced this, everybody thought I was friggin' nuts. They still do. So, you know, it was kind of a very low, it's fun to have friends now, but you know, I think Nathan made the case earlier that it wasn't early on. There were no friends. We built it from scratch. But I did do a lot of research over the years to look at other election systems. And frankly, yes, there are other election systems that have perks that we like and perks that we don't, but this is this is the fairest system that I have seen. And it's definitely a flexible system. You can do top 2, you can do top 5. There's a variety of ways that you can actually implement the legislation, as Justin was saying earlier. So I'm strongly in support of RCV, and the reform movement is definitely pushing for RCV. And I think the more I hate to say this, because the last thing you want is to have bad things be a good thing for your idea or your project. But the more that the country devolves into chaos, and it is, the more people are going to be looking for a system that fixes it across the board. And so this is the reform that most people who have done their research on election reform have really come around. So I just wanted to expand that answer beyond RCV, because it sounded like you were asking beyond RCV.
Yeah, yes. Well, does RCV allow, you know, what I'll say, just give more power, you know, I don't know if that's the right word, or more visibility to third-party candidates?
Very much so. Actually, more than the others.
Yeah.
The short difference between like the two major is kind of approval voting and ranked choice. Approval is, I am for candidates A, B, and C, so I put my vote to all 3 of them.
Right.
But the issue with approval voting, and the reason why we're generally not for it, is any vote that you give to your B and C, if candidate A is the one that you really want, is somewhat definitionally a vote against candidate A, because it increases the chance that those other ones can win in that first round.
Right.
Whereas ranked choice voting means that you have to actually make sure that you run through the instant runoffs so your candidates are ranked in that fashion so that your second choice doesn't hurt your first choice. Your third choice doesn't hurt your second, in the way approval voting does. So to give you that a bit shorter of an answer, like that's the reason why for us it's somewhat specific on ranked choice and its versions than approval.
What cities in Ohio are you working with, or is this already ranked choice voting already set up, or you're trying to get it set up in, besides Cincinnati? I know you mentioned that earlier.
Sure. Medina and Granville are two of the others. We are talking to people in Delaware. I keep saying Detroit. We're talking to people in Delaware as well. And one of the next ones that we want to push is Dayton. But one of our friends in that city has been a little swamped lately. And so we're trying to get that one off the ground.
Yeah, that's understandable. Does the size of the city matter at all? In other words, you mentioned Cincinnati, Dayton, Medina. That's not a real big city. It's small. I don't know if that's bigger or smaller than Dayton or not. But, the small, the 30,000 population city I live in, Mason. Is that something you'd be interested in?
Oh, yeah, everywhere. Real quick, Craig, can you put Hearn into room 2, please?
Copy.
To answer your question a little bit also on my end, I think the key is to have one done, and that where the people are happy. That's the key. Like when we were in Portland, when I was in the legislature, people kept saying, well, we don't have one in Portland. We don't have ranked choice in Maine. So we went to Portland, which was my city and the largest city in the state. And so we did it. We had a charter commission that was coming up, and we made the charter commission central around ranked choice voting. And it still continues to be. There's a charter commission happening right now, and they're trying to expand ranked choice voting. And then we had, and then once that happened, we got it passed. The city clerk emailed me, Kathy, and like the next day, and was like, "Great, now what? How do I count these votes?" So I told him to go to True Ballot, to Caleb Klepner, and Caleb came out and to Portland. And there was no financial, I've not taken a dime to work on RCV, just so we're clear. So there's no financial thing. I just happen to know him. There's a whole cadre of us that used to work at Fairvote that are now either that are doing other stuff, and he's one of them. So he came in and ran the election for us, and it was so successful. Ironically, it was the one day I couldn't actually be there for the count, which was weird. I've only been there for the statewide count. So he did it, and it was remarkably successful. And then I had been working with the editorial board editor because he was my neighbor, on this issue for years. And he wrote still one of the best, I think it's one of the best editorials that I've ever seen written about it. And he really captured, the essence of all the pieces of RCV and the side benefits. And so with that, once we had that, we were really armed with what we needed. So in terms of the size of the town, I think that's a good question. 30,000 is fine. The 65,000 was mine, but I think the key is to have at least one, and everybody's focused on the campaign, and then the campaign's over, and they don't pay attention to the implementation. The thing with RCV is that the implementation part is really important, and people forget that. Like, you got to stay at the table after you've won. And we saw that in Maine, and that we had to do a whole other referendum. I mean, I was running for governor at the time, and then had to turn around and quarterback a people's veto, which is one of the reasons I didn't stand a chance that election. But I stand by saving RCV. But the key is to have one piece that is successful and to follow the implementation all the way through, because if you don't, they'll take it from you, they'll repeal it, they won't do it right. And to really have your network in place to understand how to help the town or the Board of Elections to be able to do their election properly. Because if you don't, you're going to end up with bad editorials. We worked very diligently to protect the campaign. We worked very diligently to make sure that the election was run correctly and well, and all that work had paid off. And so then the other thing is, we also had a catalyst moment, which was Paula Page. So that certainly made a difference. But yeah, if you're interested in doing it in your town, there are a couple ways to do it. One is to approach your town councilors. The other is to start a referendum. It requires money, of course, but we can help you with that a little bit.
Yep.
Or there are people that can help you with that. I'm not offering money right now. I want to clarify that. So it's not immediately available. But I think, it's doable. They're not easy. I mean, each town, and someone was asking, I think it was Russ, about the Board of Elections. So I live in one of two states that does not do county elections, which is very rare. As I said, there are only two states that do it that way. So every single town in my state does our elections, which is a friggin' nightmare. It's ludicrously stupid. But I don't have the answers in terms of like whether the Board of Elections sets that rule and ordinance, or if the town does, or the state, or the county commissioners. So there's some questions about who to go to for changing those laws. And I don't have that answer, but I hope that answers your question a little bit more.
In other words, what you're saying is that I could convince everybody on my town council that this was a good idea, but the county Board of Elections may have to agree as well.
Well, I don't know how it works. I mean, if it's just for your town, the town should have full sovereignty over that. But in terms of, the Board of Elections is going to be tasked with the implementation of it. And, the equipment is very real. For municipal elections, I think Caleb Klepner is the way to go, or someone like him. But you still have to pay for the election itself. And so that, and any upgrades. So they are going to want to say in it, and they'll probably, more than anything, they'll probably be super influential with the town council. And it's influence that you'll never see. It'll be private conversations that they have. And it'll probably, the other thing to keep in mind is staff makes a lot of decisions. Especially in towns where there's not a lot of, it's not staff, where there's not you don't have your own independent staff. So in many cases, the town makes decisions based on what the staff proposals are, and the staff is going to do what they think is the least amount of work possible. Generally, that's in my experience, and they're not going to like this, and they're going to talk to the Board of Elections, who's going to really not want this. They're going to want nothing to do with it. And so just be aware that you're going to have a lot of pushback that you don't actually see, but is real and detrimental. So I would do a lot of pre-work with your Board of Elections. And you have resources at the national level who can connect those people with folks that can walk them through how this works.
Well, is this something that needs to get approved at the county level too then, or?
I don't know. You'll have to find, I think folks in Ohio will have a better answer.
Okay, got you.
Yeah, it changes slightly. Most of the time, it's actually fairly easy. And like we have, at least starting up in Cincinnati and of like a couple of these other cities, like the county has not given us any pushback. And what we also know is that all of that, as far as currently, all of the voting machines in the state can run ranked choice elections.
Oh,
so
then that changes everything. As long as that's the case, you won't hear from the elections board. As long as you guys have RCV capable machines, you're fine.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, that was actually a thing
that's been the issue. That was a huge issue in Maine, and the Secretary of State in Maine was, not the current one, but the previous one was very, very opposed to ranked choice voting, and his deputy, who still is there, very, very opposed. And even after we won repeatedly, and even after they had done it, they were always very tepid to offer support. They would walk you through it, but they were never excited about RCV. I think the new Secretary of State probably is, but the deputy still isn't.
Yeah, so we were good. Craig.
Ms. Russell, question for you. What was your take on the press coverage coming out of the New York City mayoral election of ranked choice voting?
Oh, Craig, that is such a great question. And I had forgotten about New York. I have short-term memory issues from a concussion. New York.
And those edibles.
Yeah. Edibles. The edibles allowed when my concussion went out of control, the edibles actually reined me in. But I do love my edibles, and yes, they do help with missing things. So New York was a game changer in my mind. I mean, what we're seeing, it wasn't just the press coverage that came out. I mean, think about who backed it, like AOC and Jerry Nadler. I mean, Jerry is a great guy, but he is not like known as a like diehard progressive. He's like a moderate bureaucrat guy, right? Who's only recently, as judiciary chair or whatever, been known. But he, the people that backed it in Congress was in New York was incredible. I mean, I think what we're looking at when legalization moved forward in New York, that same day, Chuck Schumer was out doing rounds about how we were going to legalize weed now. He didn't do that with RCV, but I think he got in. I have a feeling he got into the excitement of it. So we're talking about national leaders now that are in a position to make that kind of national change and are really on board with it. So and their followers were on board with it. But the press coverage, I didn't see bad press coverage. I thought it was very interesting. Obviously the week, the first time you do an election, and you got to really prepare people for this, honestly. The first election, people do want their election results right away. And so they do. The first election we had that was statewide, it was for the governor's primary, and everybody was like, by a week in, they were like, come on, we should have the results by now. What is going on? So there is some of that. And I saw that in New York. But once people have gone through it the first time and they get accustomed to the fact that they're just gonna have to wait, like you're just not gonna have the answer at the end of the night. And if there's a runoff, and then they've got, the newspapers love it in the end because they get to keep reporting on the news and people keep reading it and they keep getting clicks, right? So that's part of it. We do have to be very careful about that. And if we can get I think nationally, if we can start to get the delta between the election night and the actual counting down to like 3 days, we'll be in better shape for this. But there are, each state is different. Like we actually, by constitution, have to bring our ballots to Augusta with the state police. So we actually bring thumb drives to the Secretary of State's office because that's in our constitution, or not thumb drives, but ballots. And so they do it there. So there are process things that slow it down. And I think that we saw that in New York as well. But I think on the aggregate, people didn't really fault RCV so much as they just was going to take a little bit longer. And they ended up with a candidate or a mayor that they seemed to like. I mean, he just took a bunch of money in Bitcoin. So I like him. So I think the weak piece, WEEK and WEAK, the weak piece is the weak piece of RCV. So the fact that it takes a week, yeah. WEAK versus WEAK.
Oh yeah, why does it take?
Because the elections board, if they can't run it, so with Ohio, if Justin is right, and I'm sure he is, that they already have it on their vote counting machines, and it's not a big thing. We actually have to do a separate tabulation on our vote counting machines, and we have to get our thumb drives from each of the vote counting machines back to Augusta, which is our state capital. So I think that's part of it. It's just the timing to get there. But if you have it on your machines and it already tabulates automatically and the machines can do it, great. But it's my understanding that even though the machines can tabulate it, what they're really doing is taking the data, they're exporting it into Excel on the back end, and then they have to aggregate that data together across the state, and then they can run the tabulation. But if the vote counting machines are more sophisticated in Ohio, it might not take that. But we do need to get that delta down. But some of that's just there are logistics involved in what we're doing in vote counting.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think New York was.
For us, the main thing is actually going to be very similar to what Diane said. On a state level, we would very likely have to centralize it in a sense. But if you have just your city, we actually like the machines that we have can actually just run, say, just a city's one like in a day, because all of the vote machines can just do it in that local spot. But when you do it over an entire state's worth, you do kind of have to centralize it just a bit, so that everyone's votes are actually being counted, because they all have to be in the same spot to do it properly.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, would actually be questions of like, hey, did you do it right? Because you don't have an entire city's worth, or like these people got left out.
Oh, right.
Are we doing this right? So there is a bit of an issue on like making sure, no, we want to do this right. We don't get to do it super fast. But like on a city's level, you don't have to drive I know from Cleveland to Cincinnati, it's 4.5 hours. You don't have to drive 4.5 hours to get to wherever you need to go in the state. And that's one of the things that makes it take longer.
One of the
And
others.
sheer
I'm sorry.
volume of the voters too. I mean, when you're talking about a small municipality, 30 to 200,000, like that's doable in a day or so. But New York is many millions of people. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Craig.
No, I was going to ask about, and you guys may have already touched on this too, is that it's the difference too between the plurality versus the majority, right? So for us to get to 51 to declare a winner, we would have to know how many people are totally into the pot. Whereas with the plurality, you can get to a point where it's enough people have count. You can count and be done before all of the. You can declare a winner before all of the people have been counted, because you're already reaching a plurality number. Would that be a correct assessment?
Yes.
Yeah.
If
I gotta
a
close the
person
room.
say has 40% and there is like someone's at 40%, someone's at 27, blah blah blah, and goes down the line, and there's just 10% left unreported. By definition, that 10% could not beat the gap of 40 to 27. So like that would be a plurality. You could end it, but with a ranked choice, no, you actually do have to make sure everyone's is in. You don't get to call it early. You don't get to pretend as though a bunch of people don't matter because, hey, we have already counted and mathematically you're out. You actually have to wait for them.
Oh,
That
That's
is
an interesting talking point.
in other
Actually,
words-
think about it.
I gotta
Somebody can't be
I gotta
so
close the
far
rooms.
ahead.
Go ahead and close the rooms. I know you got to.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
People should be coming in. Usually everyone will start trickling in a little bit, but then once the minute hits that it takes,
Coming in.
that's when we'll get the deluge.
I'm impressed that you guys have got 35 people on the call today. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. It's always weird because talking to people who have been doing this for a while, like yourself, did this prior to a pandemic. So I'm always curious to see like what it was like as people talk about it. But hello, everyone. Nice to have you back.
Emily, who do you have with you?
This is Raina.
Hi, Raina.
Can you say hi?
What do you do when you grow up?
I grow like this tall.
Yeah, you're gonna grow
What
that
do you do when
tall?
you grow up?
Be happy. I want to be happy. I want to
Yeah.
play.
That's right.
I want to take down the patriarchy.
Yes.
Yes.
We'll talk more about that. We do talk about that a lot.
Do a whole couple of Zooms on that. You want to hear my thoughts on that? You be my guest.
Mhm.
Nice to have you back,
Welcome.
everyone. But Kyle, Alan, do you guys want to take over?
Yeah, thank you. We just want to go around and summarize real quick what each of the groups did, and then we'll have a couple minutes just for any like pressing questions that people have, and then Kristen will go over some logistics and preparations for our upcoming meetings, and then we will be happy to stick around if anyone has any additional questions. But just a quick report out from the social media group. We had a lot of great ideas from people working on different posts. But even if you weren't in the group, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And remember to tag us whenever you hashtag ranked choice voting, and today especially hashtag RCV Day. Thanks. Kristen?
I just threw the donation link in there one more time for anybody who wants to make a donation before we leave today. And also want to mention that tonight at 8 p.m., there is a wonderful, amazing Rank the Vote RCV or Ranked Choice Voting Day celebration. That's hosted by a lot of the national orgs that are supporting us, Fair Vote, Ranked Vote. It's going to be an amazing celebration at 8 p.m. So if you want to join the RCV Day celebration, I'm putting that in the chat right now. Yes, and there's also a panel discussion that's going to be with the Green Party at 4 p.m. Yep. So lots of RCV Day celebration stuff still to come yet today. So we invite you to join